Well, bean growers, it looks like the weather has finally turned to outdoor growing. It's hot, it's humid, and if you want to transplant your beans to some outdoor soil, you can do so. I'm going to keep mine indoors for now so that I can continue monitoring them closely and bring us live video coverage wherever possible. Today is day 25. It's been a while since I gave an update on the plants that were in the sun but didn't have soil. So I wanted to bring attention to the fact that the roots that had died off have not suddenly begun to draw water. Instead, the roots, the stems have grown more roots. The white ones that have grown up above the original roots are now drawing water. And that means that for both of these plants, so long as I keep the water level high enough, that those roots that have grown out of the stem can get water from. We're now seeing the first compound leaves out of these. Now the internode is very small between the first leaf, single leaves, and now the compound leaf. So it's not doing very well, but it is starting to regrow a bit. The cotyledons have long been spent, so without soil, they're not going to reach their full potential, but they are trying to regrow. They are trying to go to the next level anyway, even though, you know, their first leaves have failed. They are trying to grow more. So new roots can grow out of the stem. One of the key features of plant leaves is that they can bend toward the light. We call this phenomenon phototropism. And I'm doing today's video during the daytime to show exactly what that means. We've seen before how they were bent downward. Now, some of the leaves are bent upward, almost at 180 degrees from what they are during the nighttime. Okay, now a very famous experiment has been done in the past to show that the phototropism, the part of the leaf that senses the light, is at the tip of the leaf, and if the tips are covered, the leaves won't actually bend. But the leaves themselves don't really bend that much. For our bean leaves, the bending happens mostly at the base of the leaf. So that begs the question, how is the plant communicating between the tip of the leaf to the base of the leaf? There must be a process for doing that, considering that, well, water flows from the roots through the stems and out through the leaves, but there must be some way to communicate between the tip of the leaf and the base of the leaf in order to tell it to bend in a certain direction. One way we can all relate to phototropism is with a bendy straw. The bendy part of the straw is a lot like the base of a leaf. Now, when there's no sun, if we think about this end as the leaf and this end as the stem, when light hits the top of the leaf, what happens is the sensors at the tip of the leaf communicate with the base of the leaf by with a hormone called auxin. And auxin is a hormone that makes cells longer. So if sunlight touches the top of the leaf, then auxin is released on the bottom side of the leaf, and thus the bottom side of the base. And if more auxin hits the bottom side of the base, then those cells begin to get longer. And if they get longer, it turns the leaf upright so that it can get more sunlight. When the sun is no longer hitting the top of the leaf relaxes and it goes back down into its resting position so it doesn't have to expend more energy. Not all light causes phototropism. In fact, it's just the blue light out of the white sunlight that causes the phototropism to occur. If that blue light strikes the tip of a leaf, it causes auxin to be released on the underside and travel to the base of the leaf, specifically the underside of the base. So what the auxin does is it travels and enters the cells on the bottom side and causes them to get longer. What that in effect does is causes the leaf to turn upward. So the cells on the top side stay the same length, but the ones on the bottom get longer. And the effect is that the leaf is turned upright. Once the leaves have been removed from direct sunlight, it doesn't take long for the leaves to start to droop again. Now, it's still daytime, so they're still collecting light. They're more flat now. So between nighttime when they're completely flattened and in direct sunlight when they're often pointed directly upward, we have a rotation of almost a full semicircle or even more, 180 degrees, that the leaf can direct itself to either maximize sunlight or to expend the least amount of energy. What you are watching now is a time-lapse video at 16 times normal speed. I wanted to capture the plant leaves returning to rest position after being removed from the sunlight. So I took the plants off the sunny windowsill and immediately placed them under the video camera where they're out of the direct sunlight. In less than 1 minute, you are viewing about 15 minutes worth of compressed video recording so that the effect of losing sunlight can be evident to your eyes. Plant is not sad at the loss of light, though it may be slightly confused when I put it back, because plants like to keep a normal rhythm of night and day cycles just like us. Flowering plants won't open up unless they've gotten a good night's sleep the night before. The grade 5 and 6 class may recall back to our electricity unit when Mr. Austin had his pair of solar cells and he was tilting them into the sun to try and get the maximum current to flow through the circuit. A leaf is much the same way, though a little more complicated. It is using phototropism to angle its leaves to get the right amount of sunlight. But one thing I've found even more interesting with our bean plants, looking at them in the sun, is that the leaves don't all point the same way. And in fact, they don't necessarily maximize the direct sunlight. Why wouldn't they try to maximize? It seems that in some cases they tilt even more than what's required. I don't have the best answer, but I can give an analogy based upon ourselves. You know that the UV index has been very high of late, and if you go outside in the middle of the day without any sunscreen on, you're going to get burned. Specifically, your forehead, the tip of your nose, your ears, perhaps your arms if you're holding them out right, or the tops of your feet if you're wearing sandals. Those parts are going to get more direct sunlight than other parts of your body. And I think that has something to do with the leaf as well. If the leaf stays in the most direct sunlight position the whole time, perhaps it gets burned, and it doesn't need to get that much sunlight. It needs to get the right amount of sunlight. So the leaves aren't using phototropism just to get the maximum amount of light. They're probably using it to get just the right angle of light that allows it to produce its own food without getting burned. Now, likewise for us, we use sunlight also to break up a molecule that gives us vitamin D in our body. So like us, we want to get some sunlight in order to get some vitamin D without getting burned. With about 4 weeks until summer solstice, when the sun is highest in the sky at noon, even in this part of the world, it's not directly overhead. The sun is coming in at, an angle like this. If the leaves were all trying to maximize the amount of sunlight, then they would all be perpendicular to the incoming rays like this. But the leaves are not like that. The leaves are in all different directions. Some are pointed upward like this. Some are more down. Some are on the side. And they're also pointed in different directions like this, and all different arrangements. Perhaps they're reflecting some light onto another, but they're certainly not trying to get the maximum amount of sunlight. They're trying to get plenty of sunlight, but they're not getting the most direct sunlight. Both of the bean plants in sunlight and soil have now developed their second compound leaf, but it is not opposite the first compound leaf. There is another internode between the next compound leaf's node, and we call that an alternating pattern. Whereas the original first two leaves, the first pairs of single leaves are on either side. The compound leaves now are alternating nodes. Only one set of compound leaves on each node instead of two. And we can see the third compound leaf beginning to grow as well on both of the sunlight and soil plants. So if you transplant your beans this week, try to do it in the morning or late afternoon, not between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. so you don't get burned. But get a little bit of sun. It's good for you. It's good for your plant. Make sure you get lots of water. It's good for you. It's good for your plant. And get some soil. It's good for the plant. And, well, just scrub underneath your nails.